Joe has spent several weeks rejecting all the accusations against him, even though it's clear he's responsible for every one of them. The tension reached its peak when Moira confronted him while holding a shotgun. Dawn showed up just in time and shocked everyone by announcing she was pregnant. She pleaded with Moira to lower the weapon, and eventually Moira gave in, but she made it clear that revenge would come later. And it looks like that moment is arriving sooner than expected. When Moira saw Dawn out later that evening, Thursday, April 30, she made a few more pointed remarks about Joe. Eventually, Dawn gave in and later visited Moira, asking her to explain everything she knew. As Dawn listened to the full story and began connecting the dots, she realized that everything Moira had said was true. She later confronted Joe, but he lied straight to her face, even swearing on her life that he was being honest. Later, Dawn secretly met with Moira and Cain, completely shaken. "I want him to suffer," she told them. However, she was deeply concerned about her unborn child, knowing it carried the Tate name and fearing she could never truly escape them. Cain suggested terminating the pregnancy, but Dawn refused to consider it. "I can't stay, I can't leave, and I have no idea what to do," Dawn sobbed. Moira advised her to return home and act like everything was normal. She insisted that the only way forward was to be ruthless and bring Joe down completely. "Get everything you can from him, every last penny. And if you break his heart in the process, even better," she urged. Moira also warned that once they began, there would be no turning back until it was finished. "Joe and I are done. I'll do it. I'm in," Dawn declared firmly. This storyline could hint at Olivia's departure as Dawn. Reports surfaced last month, claiming she had been written out of the show after 8 years. Her exit scenes are expected to air during the summer, with the build-up already underway. It appears she may strip Joe of everything he owns before making her escape. But the question remains, where will she go? Will she also cut ties with Kim? And does this mean she'll spend her life hiding from the Tates? One thing is certain, with Moira and Cain supporting her, Joe is going to face the consequences, and it's exactly what he deserves. Emmerdale has unveiled a new revenge storyline involving the Dingles, while Joe Tate remains completely unaware of what they are planning in an early ITVX episode. Joe has no clue about the trouble heading his way. The manipulative businessman has made plenty of enemies over the years, but this time he may have finally gone too far by crossing the Dingle family. Earlier in the week, Moira uncovered the truth that Joe had forced Robert into planting passports linked to trafficked workers at Butler's farm. These documents belonged to associates connected to a criminal operation, and Moira was set up as a result. Because of this, she was imprisoned for months, accused of human trafficking and 2 counts of murder. Joe had threatened Robert, warning that if he didn't cooperate, he would hand over a video to the police showing Victoria killing her half-brother. Overwhelmed with guilt, Robert eventually admitted everything. Moira was furious, but chose not to involve the police, instead warning him that Cain would be the one to fear. Determined to get revenge, she went straight to Home Farm and pointed a shotgun at Joe. He pleaded for his life and shouted for help when he heard someone arriving. Dawn then appeared, and in a desperate move to stop Moira, she revealed she was carrying Joe's child. Joe insisted he was being honest, claiming that although he knew about Robert's actions, the entire plan had been Robert's idea to take over Butler's farm. Dawn, however, clearly doubted his story. In the latest episode, Dawn visited Wishingwell Cottage, hoping Moira would tell her the full truth. While she knew Joe could be harsh, she struggled to believe he would go as far as destroying Moira's family. Feeling trapped and unsure of what to do, Dawn returned to Joe and mentioned she had been looking for the right moment to tell her ex-husband Billy about the pregnancy. Joe reassured her of his love and claimed he wasn't lying anymore, but this only convinced Dawn that she needed to act. Later, she secretly met Moira and Cain on a quiet country road, where they began forming a plan. Moira urged Dawn to rethink the situation and focus on making Joe pay for everything he had done. She suggested Dawn continue pretending everything was fine, go ahead with their wedding, and ultimately strip him of all his wealth. Dawn agreed, saying she would hand over the money to the Dingles, a move that would only make Joe even more furious. The question now is whether Joe will discover their plan and if Dawn can handle the pressure without breaking. Emmerdale has confirmed viewers' worst suspicions as Dr. Todd makes her next move. The show's newest villain causes more trouble tonight by spreading false claims about Jacob Sugden. Even though she previously agreed to keep the peace with her younger colleague, Todd can't resist stirring things up again as she tries to ruin his reputation. Jacob is currently on paternity leave after the joyful arrival of baby Layla, and he has been hoping for a clean slate with Todd when he returns to work. However, as they keep running into each other around the village, Todd begins subtly reminding him that their issues are far from over. At the cafe, she becomes interested when she overhears Jacob and Sarah telling others that the baby has been keeping them up all night. Pulling Jacob aside for a private chat, Todd crosses the line by asking if he feels left out now that all the attention is on the baby and Sarah. Later, at the pub, Todd attempts to insert herself again by offering help with the baby, but Jacob quickly shuts her down. Afterwards, she vents her frustration to Manpreet and Vanessa, insisting that she thought things had improved after his apology, only for him to behave differently again. Manpreet, confused, points out that Jacob has done nothing unusual other than visit the pub, but Todd responds by suggesting something more troubling is going on. She claims that earlier at the cafe, he deliberately arranged for them to be alone, and now he's deliberately intruding on her space. These accusations make it clear that Todd has no intention of letting the situation go, as she is determined to get back at Jacob for reporting her to the hospital's HR department. Although Jacob later withdrew his complaint, upcoming scenes show him beginning to regret that decision, and it seems Todd may already be one step ahead. An Emmerdale favourite is left shaken as a character thought to be dead suddenly reappears during a gripping murder storyline. Bear is currently behind bars, just days away from a trial where he'll face questions over the alleged killing of Ray Walters. His son Paddy Kirk is also set to testify, alongside Dylan Penders, with both men accused of interfering with justice. All three understand that their chances of being cleared are very slim. The evidence stacked against Bear looks serious, and the fact that Paddy and Dylan spent so long hiding the truth and misleading the police only makes matters worse. Until now, they've had very little hope, but that changed in tonight's episode. Paddy returned to the prison visiting area to see his father, whom he hadn't visited in weeks after Bear was placed in isolation following an outburst. While they were talking, Bear suddenly noticed someone familiar in the background speaking with another inmate. The person was Simo, a man who had previously been forced to work on the farm alongside Bear and other vulnerable individuals. Late last year, Simo and Mick had tried to escape and asked Bear to help them. At the time, due to the manipulation and abuse he was experiencing, Bear didn't believe anything was wrong and instead stopped them from leaving. He hinted to Ray that something suspicious was happening, leading to Simo and Mick being caught in the act. After that, Simo vanished, with Ray claiming he had been moved to another farm. Until now, Bear had believed that Simo had been killed, so seeing him alive left him overwhelmed with emotion. Once Paddy learned the truth, he realized that Simo could be a crucial witness who might help Bear's case in court. Outside, Paddy approached Simo and asked for his support, but he politely refused. He explained that he had finally begun rebuilding his life and didn't want to risk reliving the trauma of his past. However, next week, Simo changes his mind and agrees to testify. Unfortunately, his statement ends up having a negative impact on Bear, who is far more vulnerable than anyone realizes. He begins to spiral emotionally, losing any sense of hope. Bear is now in desperate need of a turning point, but whether that will come remains uncertain. Emmerdale is shown every weekday at 8 p.m. on ITV1, and viewers can also stream it from 7 a.m. on ITVX and YouTube.